There's only two sides of this, Perloff, and you've got to pick a side.
Okay.
You either believe that Aaron Rodgers was basically ghosted by the Packers, or the Packers wanted to move on. Maybe ghosted is too strong. You either believe that Rodgers says the organization wanted to move on from me, and you know what? That's okay.
Right.
Or you believe the Packers said, no, we tried to get in touch with you. We couldn't find you. We couldn't find you, Aaron Rodgers. You didn't return any of our calls, basically. This has now devolved into a he said. It's getting a little ugly here at the end between Rodgers and the Packers. No deal is imminent between the Packers and the Jets, so we still wait in limbo here. But who do you believe? Do you believe Rodgers, or do you believe Brian Gutekunst, the general manager of the Packers?
Well, I do. I'm positive the Packers wanted to move on. I mean, there's no.
Yes.
I mean, just basic logic says that they wanted to move on.
I think they've wanted to move on. Yeah.
They've wanted to move on. But I'm going to give Goody the edge here.
Okay.
And it's based on one simple fact. I don't totally trust Aaron Rodgers.
Well, he's not a very reliable narrator, so I would understand where you're coming up with
I like him, but that immunity speech kind of ruined his trust level for me.
Right.
So I think they were both fudging the truth, but I think Aaron's was a much more direct fudging.
Okay, I'm the total opposite. I think Rodgers is actually telling the truth on this whole thing, and I think the Packers are the ones who are in the wrong. So let's hear yesterday how we even got to this tete-a-tete, which is, I don't think I used that correctly. How we got to this he said, which is Brian Gutekunst, who was speaking at the owners' meetings, was talking about basically what happened with Rodgers. Why did it go south?
I didn't really take his comments like that, and it's certainly not true. I mean, I think, as we got out of the offseason or after the season, and we had a good conversation, and then, we're going to have some follow-up conversations. And our inability to reach him or for him to respond in any way, I think at that point, then we just kind of I had to do my job and kind of reach out and understanding that a trade could be possible.
Okay, so basically he's saying they had good conversations and that they tried to get in touch with Rodgers and they couldn't get in touch with him, right?
Yeah,
okay.
That sounds plausible.
Let's go to the Wayback Machine, shall we? Because let's go to 2 weeks ago. And this is the last time that Rodgers was on the Pat McAfee show. And so here's Rodgers talking about the message from the Packers after the season.
We come off of last year. Everything that I was told in the week that I was in Green Bay was take as long as you want, and we want you to retire Packer. You want to come back and play. Obviously, the door is wide open. So that was the information that I was going on.
Okay, take as much time as you want. Then Rodgers went into the darkness. And this was the most talked about darkness retreat in the history of darkness retreats, which I don't even know how long they've been going on for.
He only talked about darkness retreat.
Thank you. We only talked about the darkness retreat. Everyone in the world knew he was going in. We didn't know which day. That was a controversy. How long did he stay in? Was it 4 days? Was it 3 days? The whole sports world knew about the darkness retreat. So you have to think the Packers knew he was going off the grid into the darkness. Then Rodgers said, what happened after the retreat?
When I came out of the darkness, something changed. I'm not exactly sure what that was, but something changed. And I got back to my phone after 5 days off of it. I got back to hundreds of text messages and emails and all different things. I realized that there'd been a little bit of a shift, that there was some shopping going on, that they were interested in actually moving me.
You can't say that you couldn't get in touch with Aaron Rodgers when you knew that he was in the darkness retreat. Isn't this how it's set up? Like, it makes it seem like Rodgers went into the darkness and they said, well, we couldn't get a hold of you, so we had to go and shop you to the Jets.
Come on. That obviously means before the darkness retreat.
Okay, but they told him, Rodgers said, they said, take as long as you want.
Okay, well, maybe that part, well, listen, there's many ways to say take as long as you want. For example, I will say when we're getting ready to go out, I'm going to pull a husband-wife cliche to my wife. Take as long as you want. We can get there, whatever. Yeah. That doesn't really mean take as long as you want. So the season,
really means hurry up.
The season ended January 8th, and I assume based on what Rodgers said, he was in Green Bay till about January 15th.
Something like that.
I just looked it up. The darkness retreat got out February 23rd. Yeah. So the Packers need to make their offseason plan because the league year is about to start. They probably wanted to talk to him before he went to the darkness. And I assume he was doing lots of things to get ready for the darkness retreat, packing his toiletries, doing all these things.
The little toothpaste,
Maybe what the Packers are saying, we needed to talk to him before he went into the darkness retreat and he blew us off.
I know.
Can you believe that?
Okay, but we all knew, or I think we all knew, the reason he was going into the darkness partially was to figure out what he wanted to do with his career. Remember, he told McAfee, 90% I wanted to retire going in, and then I was 90-10 retired when I went into the retreat. I came out, I wanted to play again. He might not have wanted to talk to them before because he wasn't sure of what his answer was going to be.
These are NFL personnel, men. You're telling me that they're going to have one of their players say, I have to go into a darkness retreat to decide if I want to play anymore? These guys are like looking at cap numbers and how good guys run 40. They can't handle that kind of
what do you mean? Of course they can.
Bizarre new age medicine kind of thing. No, wait.
Listen,
you're telling me
Rodgers
Brian
has been in the building, yes.
I don't know anything about Brian Gutekunst, but I'm based on the name that he's a Green Bay Packers executive named Brian Gutekunst, that he's not up on new age treatments.
Listen, if you're not in the mood, get in the mood because your franchise quarterback is one of these new age spiritual guys. So you got to learn his language a little bit if you really wanted him to come back. Now, I don't think they ever really wanted him back, which is where this comes from.
Maybe he was 90% done February 23rd. And if you're the Packers, you need to know
that's totally
if all their information had been, he's going out. Like, they need to know before February 20th what's happening here. But they got to start doing their offseason.
Totally. And I understand it. But to say, like, well, we just couldn't get a hold of him. You know, we've been talking a lot over the last couple weeks and months maybe about Lamar Jackson, how he doesn't have an agent and how this makes it a little clunky and how this whole franchise, this trade request and all this stuff is going. You know who does have an agent? Aaron Rodgers. He's had one forever. You can find somebody who's in touch with Aaron Rodgers. Now, not during the darkness retreat. I doubt his agent's going to come and knock on his little hobbit door and tell him to come out because the Packers need an answer. But he's not somebody who's doing this in such a different way. He's got representatives. It's part of a massive agency. You can figure out, hey, man, this is where Aaron is. You just have to wait 4 days. It's not like you have to. Wasn't in the darkness for a month.
No. Come on. You really expect a professional organization to wait for some dude to come out of a darkness retreat? How did they know that he had made his decision? This is not a real thing, right? You're not saying they should have waited for the darkness retreat.
They totally should have waited for the darkness retreat.
The darkness retreat? What? They're running a football team, not a commune in Northern California.
And the thing is that Rodgers came out of the darkness, went on McAfee and said, I totally get it. And thanks for the memories, Packers, and blah, blah, blah. And then Gutekunst, had to go out of his way to, correct the record from his point of view or whatever. How about this? Let it go. If you really want to move on and you're not this worried about being right or whatever that even means, then let it go. And that's another reason why I side with Rodgers on this one. If you're the team and you're trying to execute this trade, how about this? You don't have to say a damn thing anymore because the guy's going to be off the roster in hopefully the next couple weeks.
Wow, it's not that simple.
It's called the high road, yo.
There's a couple of things. First of all, none of this...
Yo. Ever heard of it?
You've never seen The Hobbit. How do you know what a Hobbit door looks like?
I actually have seen The Hobbit. I fell asleep. It was a very expensive nap I took.
So, it only won the Oscar. No big deal. It was only voted the best picture of 2006 or whatever year. So, here's a couple things. Aaron Rodgers could retire, and Aaron Rodgers might not. Somebody is probably asking Aaron Rodgers to eat some money at some point. So, they definitely couldn't just trade him. They needed Aaron Rodgers on board, so they couldn't quietly trade him behind the scenes. But the other thing, too, is what does this tete-a-tete matter to anybody or anything? Who cares if Gutekunst and Rodgers are on different pages?
Well, it might not, but I think that Rodgers saying that the Packers are digging their heels in, that's where...
Oh, is that why Goody's doing this?
I think that's why he's doing this, because he's trying to basically say Rodgers wasn't telling the truth and doesn't know what he's talking about.
I was wondering, too, do you think that Gutekunst is trying to sell the fan base on the fact that they're moving on?
Yeah, but I don't think you had to. See, that's the miscalculation. We've talked to Packer fans. We're on in Wisconsin. We've talked to Packer fans. We have a good friend of ours who runs a Packers fan website. They were all ready to move on to Jordan Love. I don't think you had to sell the fan base. We've heard nothing from but Packer fans saying it's time for the Jordan Love era to start.
I don't know if that's true. We'll talk to. We're having Leroy Butler on later. Yeah. You really think all the Packers fans have moved on to Jordan Love?
I think enough of them where you didn't have to sell the fan base.
Well, I think you have to sell them in the sense if it goes terribly wrong, at least you can say we had our reasons. If Jordan Love isn't good, then you laying the groundwork for saying Rodgers kind of wanted out and was acting funny.
Well, listen, if Jordan Love really isn't good, you messed up as a front office because not only did you trade up to get him in the first round, but you had 3 years to develop him and never did it. Well, so you were wrong.
Well, regardless, too, and bringing back Aaron Rodgers was. It's going to be one more year of playoff disappointment. There was no future with Rodgers there. That's where I am. Do you think that they were going anywhere with Aaron Rodgers?
Well, if they had made the playoffs this year, you never know what could have happened.
Well, you kind of know when they're good with Aaron Rodgers. When they have a great team around Aaron Rodgers, they've been letting everyone down in the playoffs. I kind of doubt that this team was poised. It's just Rodgers and this team are at different stages of development. The team is young. Rodgers is old. So a trade made sense. I just have trouble believing Aaron Rodgers. If you're presenting it as a who's lying,
yeah,
I agree with you. Gutekunst did sound like he was telling his version of the story as well. But that being said, I kind of get it. I think Green Bay I think the front office did the right thing moving on here, and I don't know how you do that easily with Aaron Rodgers. I think it's always going to be messy. But doesn't this remind you a little bit of Favre, though? Because Favre and the front office turned against each other at the end, too.
Definitely. There's so many shades of this, but different personnel now. Gutekunst wasn't there for Favre, right?
Oh.
It was Ted Thompson was there, right?
Yeah, I think Gutekunst has been there forever.
Oh, really? But not in this senior of a role.
Right, but it's still, I think it's definitely a Ted Thompson philosophy there.
Right.
And that's why they drafted Jordan Love. I think there's a continuity there.
And honestly, then they should know how this is going to go, which is you don't really have to trash the guy on the way out.
Why but the Packers, it just wasn't as much media then. That got kind of ugly at the end. Okay. They had to basically push Favre out the door. And I think Green Bay was doing that. Now, but why would Brian Gutekunst, as you said, if he has no reason to lie here, if he could have just taken the high road, why do you think he didn't?
I think he's trying to get his side out. I just don't believe his side, personally. I think that to say we couldn't get in touch with Aaron Rodgers, to me, sounds ridiculous. Like, really ridiculous. If you can't get in touch with them, did you try to call the agent? 18 years with them. You don't have a number of somebody else around you, and you know he's going in this darkness retreat. If you think it's stupid or not, that's not the point.
You know Rodgers would blow them off. You know Rodgers is capable of blowing off. This guy blows off OTAs.
The dark, he blows off OTAs. So did Brady.
There was 5 weeks before he got in the darkness. I guarantee he didn't return a call at that time. I mean, listen, you're good about it.
Okay.
We're going to Houston, and you're stressing out about that trip, and we have light. He's going into a 4-day darkness retreat. Can you think of all the details he has to do about that?
Okay, but here's the thing. If I really knew that our boss was trying to get in touch with you and couldn't get in touch with you, for some reason you just were not returning emails or calls, I would expect that he might call me and say, hey, have you heard from Perloff? Because you and I work closely together. There's other people you can call to see whether Rodgers is around.
But what if he calls you and then you can't get a hold of Perloff either?
Well, then we have to start panicking. But the thing is they didn't want to get in touch with Rodgers. Don't you see? They didn't want it. They didn't want him to call back. They didn't care. They were already going to work on trading him. They just needed him to buy into the Jets, and that already happened. They didn't want him back. That was all BS.
Yeah.
So, you got what you wanted. He's not going to be on the team. You don't have to kick dirt in his face and call him a liar.
I don't think – I'd be curious to hear people's thoughts. I don't think people are going to feel sorry for Aaron Rodgers here.
Listen, I get it.
And I don't even think that this tete-a-tete, like, it's so irrelevant at this point. People are so exhausted by this Aaron Rodgers story. I don't think anyone's going to side with Aaron Rodgers just because he's kind of used up his goodwill on this one. And also, I don't think – I think he's so much more visible than Gutekunst that – I really like Brian Gutekunst barely figures into this. Rodgers is going to spin it his way. The honest thing is the Packers are in a better place and Rodgers is in a better place.
Yeah, now they just have to get it done.